alternate.
And Robinette Trahan was alternate.
Erica Williams Parks, headliners NOLA.
Anissa Parks, headliners NOLA.
Angela Wilson, Bluecliff College.
Andrea Cozy, Ray J's College of Hair.
Robert Burns, Sound Off, Louisiana.
Can we get an invocation? Anyone?
Dear God, I want to thank you for this day. But most of all, thank you for all of these office workers today that has been here diligent, day in and day out, persevering, and getting everything right for this board. Because I know it comes from you, and through you, you have made it possible for us. Bless our guests, and bless our governor, and bless the state of Louisiana. Thank you. Amen.
Amen. Roll call. Jill Abear, absent. Michael Anderson.
Present.
Jennifer Reed.
Present.
Raymond Cozy.
Present.
Lauren Clonan.
Present.
Nicole Godan.
Present.
5 board members present, 1 absent, and there is a quorum.
Okay, because we don't have chairman or vice chairman present today, you're going to need to elect somebody to chair the meeting. So there are any nominations for a chair for the meeting for today.
Okay.
Okay. We have one nomination. Any other nominations? No, close nominations. Any objections? All right.
Once I accept as designated, to actually move to the official chair
You
over
can.
there.
You can.
Can I stay where I'm at?
It's up to you. You're in the chair.
I'm in the chair, okay.
Okay. Next item is acceptance of the
All right, so the next item on the agenda is to accept the revised agenda that we've all been sent. Do I have a motion to accept the revised agenda?
I make a motion to accept the revised agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? And do I have a motion to accept the May 6th, last month's board minutes that we've all been sent?
I make a motion to accept the board minutes for May 6th.
A second. Any opposition? So the first item we are going to talk about, we have a Veda Arts and Science Institute. Okay, Mr. Steve's going to let us know what that's.
This next section under schools, and generally it is any changes that school owners have written the board and requested that the board vote on, because if there is a change in curriculum, if someone wishes to change, add, subtract, whatever, then the board has to approve each change for each school. So there are some changes on here. Debbie Johnson is the person who does that, takes care of it, and she will explain it to you.
Okay, first we have Aveda Arts and Sciences. They want to get the 500-hour alternative hair design curriculum approved. They recently got the 600-hour because the board previous to you guys ruled it at 600, but then our attorney stated that that wasn't the case, so they just want to get both approved so they can offer either. So 500 hour, it's in y'all's book, their curriculum.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of glanced at everything before here. Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
A second.
Any opposition?
Okay, next we have Blaylock's Professional Beauty College. They would like to reduce their hours for instructor due to the Title IV funding situation. from $750 to $500. That curriculum's in there. And they would also like to add the manicuring and aesthetics program. We did verify that they have enough classroom space to do so, so their curriculum is in there as well.
I move that they be granted opportunity to function.
I second that.
Any opposition?
Okay. Okay. Next, we have LaSalle Tech Career Education. They are also trying to reduce hours due to the Title IV funding for the manicuring program from 600 to 500 hours, and the instructor 600 to 500 as well. You'll see that in your packet as well.
I make a motion to accept the hours.
Second. Any opposition?
Okay, next we have Stage 1, the hair school. They would like to add the aesthetics program for 750 hours. They do have, I did verify they had enough classroom space to do so. So that's in your packet as well.
They have enough space, so I grant it.
They have enough space.
Yeah.
So we have a motion to accept that. Do I have a second?
A second.
All right, and last,
The thing is,
oh, we got a no?
you indicate, well, I'm just asking a question. You indicated they have enough space. Do they have enough instructors?
They have enough instructors and classroom space.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any opposition?
Okay, now we have Blue Cliff College. They want to revise their aesthetics program again, well, I don't know why, but from 780 to 750 hours. That is in your packet as well.
Do I have a motion to accept Blue Cliff's request to reduce their hours?
I second.
You make the motion.
One motion that they get.
Second. Any opposition? Alright, so next we move to Kelsey. Yes. So next we move to Kelsey for our consent agreements.
Good morning. Yes, we do have several consent agreements this morning. As usual, I'll just go through all of them and then ask that you approve them all. The first one is for Mr. Nguyen. This is a violation from February 28th of 2024 for performing nail services with an expired temporary permit without having passed their exams yet. They agreed to pay a fine of $550. This individual, as I mentioned, does not yet have a license, so there is no license to suspend as we typically would. The next one is Lorena Diaz. This is a violation from June 14th, 2022 for having one unlicensed hair braider in the salon. And there's actually two. There's one for the salon and one for the owner individually. And they each agreed to pay fines of $200 plus $350 in costs for a total of $550 plus the 1-year probation. They have each signed the consent agreements and paid the fines. The next one is Aces Beauty. This is a violation from April 19th of 2024 for operating without properly being registered. Essentially, they did not register a change of ownership with the board. They paid a fine of $200 plus $350 in cost for a total of $550 plus the 1-year probation. They have signed the consent agreement and paid the fine. The next one is Marcy Rodriguez. This is a violation from February 27th, 2024 for operating an unlicensed salon. Ms. Rodriguez agreed to pay a fine of $250 plus $350 in costs for a total of $550 plus the 1-year probation period. She has signed the consent and paid the fine. The next one is Raven Lamb. This is a violation from September 27th of 2023 for operating a salon that was not properly licensed with the board. Mr. Lamb paid a fine of $200 plus $350 in costs for a total of $550. This individual, she paid the fine and he signed. There is no license to suspend. This person is still a student, so there is no suspension provision for that consent agreement.
So, I'm sorry, if he's
Yeah.
still a student, isn't there different laws pertaining to a student performing services unlicensed?
So this guy, well, there's not, so two things. Number one, if a student is practicing performing services without a license, the board does have the discretion to revoke all of their hours. This violation was not for actually performing services, it was just for operating a salon. And so this person, as part of their consent agreement, they just had the usual $200 plus $350 in costs. But y'all don't have to accept that if y'all would rather do something else. Are there any other questions?
On Marcy Roderick, the
Yes.
sheet that we have has board costs of $300 and a total of $500. And I think when you read it, you said $350.
I probably did because that's typical, but that is correct. We did $300 for Miss Rodrigue because she was not willing to do the $350, and that was just part of our consent agreement that she said she would either do a hearing or do the $350 or do the $300. And so as part of our agreement to resolve it without having to bring the matter before the board, I agreed to do $300. Any other questions? Thank you.
Two more.
Yes, so we have the F and G go together. This is Feng Wen and A Fashion Nails. They had an unlicensed person performing eyebrow services in the salon. So we did one consent agreement for Mr. Wen and one for A Fashion Nails. They each agreed to a fine of $200 plus $350 in cost, $550 each. They each paid their fines and they agreed to the 1-year probation. They have paid the fine and signed the consents. And then the last one is, these two go together, H&I, Amy Tran and Happy Nails. This is a violation from June 30th, 2023. The salon had one unlicensed manicurist performing services. They each signed consent agreements where they paid a fine of $200 plus the cost of $350 for a total of $550 each. And they agreed to a 1-year probation. They have each paid the fine and signed the consents. And that is all of the consents for today. Thank you.
Is there anybody here on the consent agreement? Anybody here for a hearing?
Do I have a motion to accept the consent agreements?
I motion to accept.
Any opposition?
Go forward with the hearing, but it's 9:15, the schedule's wrong. Wait. It's up to you.
Move on to our old business.
Excuse me, are there consequences for not showing up for a hearing?
Yes.
Do we need to discuss those, or what do we, what's?
There was an order for them to appear today. I assume we can get into that when the hearing. Sometimes people, I don't know where are these people coming from.
I think it was Lafayette.
Lafayette.
Yeah,
So-
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they're in Lafayette.
Sometimes, the hearing people show up late, so it's just up to the board's discretion if you want to wait a few more minutes to make sure they're not going to show up. We have a couple times started the hearing and then they walked in, so, we prefer to have the hearings with the people present. But they are late because it was noticed for 9 o'clock. I don't think you have too much else to cover, really, on the rest of the agenda. If you wanted to do that, you'd probably finish in a few minutes.
Continue on and then come back and revisit. Okay. Circle back around. Circle back. Okay, moving on to old business. Is that Mr. Steve?
Well, actually, just to explain it, we had a request to place the change in the practical exam on the schedule today to be discussed. And so there was one minor change in our practical on the cosmetology practical on the head, which was cutting one section of hair. Now, Ms. Kiwan will go through it with you. And the board decided that we should do a different cut. And so I'm going to let Kiwan just explain it to you. She also has a video that's 5 minutes if we can see it. I'm not sure anybody could see it, but we might do it. Kiwan, why don't you go through it with them, just explain it to them.
Before I attempt to go through it, I do hope you asked to have it put on the agenda, correct? What was it specifically that you?
I think our questions were mainly just when is it going to go into effect? Just because we had received the memo that students beginning school by September would be testing this way. And then also we were told that we would be training, having some sort of like in-person training at the board before the end of 23. And so that hasn't happened. So I'm just receiving lots of questions from students and other people wanting to know, when that's gonna happen so they can, of course, start preparing their students and such.
We ran into some issues. The video is done. If you guys still need to see what it is that I was talking about, I can show you the video. We do have it set up to show. We did the video, and then the next step was to implement the paperwork changes. In front of you, you'll see the score sheet. The issue that the staff has with the score sheet is that you can pass before you ever actually pick up the scissors to cut. On the first one, it says that you have to have it wrapped correctly, right? Well, there's no way to ensure that the person who's testing actually did the rolling, okay? The second one, so you got 5 points for that, even if your cousin rolled it for you, right? Then the next one says you have to remove the rods. Well, you're gonna get a whole 5 points for taking the rollers out. So at this point, you have halfway passed the test, okay? And then the last one is to wrap the hair around your finger with minimum tension. So if you can execute these 3 things, you've passed already before you ever even pick up the scissors. That's a problem.
Yes, it is.
And so is there a way to, I've witnessed testing as well, and I think Jennifer and I were having a conversation earlier. There's several people in there at a time, so how are they gonna witness everybody wrapping
That
around
is an
their
issue as
finger
well.
at the same time?
It was an incomplete process. We did what we were told when we sent out that memo.
Okay.
we were told to send out the memo with a date saying XYZ, and that's what we did.
Right.
I think the intention was to have it ready. That didn't happen.
Gotcha.
And I don't know if you guys have seen the actual, it's not,
We've seen it.
okay.
Like, we could all pass that. I don't cut hair.
Well, and that, because the video was posted before we were told anything, honestly. I saw the video before I ever knew anything, but,
Wow.
I think, so maybe this is something we can maybe talk about. I think it,
Yes.
like you said, had good intentions. I think that something with textured hair absolutely could be beneficial, or will be beneficial to be added to the testing, whether or not, and no disrespect to whoever worked really hard coming up with this, but I think that we could maybe come up with a little something better. That's just my opinion, sorry.
Agreed.
And again, I know people worked really hard for it, and no disrespect to those, whoever those people are.
There could be a better way to execute it, definitely.
So if, maybe we could like pull that video down and maybe like put out a like pause on it.
Consider it done.
Thank you.
So we will just continue with the regular testing.
Yes.
Are you able to make just that one bullet point mandatory? You have to pass that?
Well, that's what this was.
Just forget it happened.
But,
That would be-
It happened.
that's extra.
Yeah.
So, Executive Director's report is that we will discuss for just a few moments that we still have 2 board members. We had one that was not appointed, and now we have 2 vacancies because Callie Peterman is no longer on the board. And so that was because when the governor's office made the appointments, the staff was using the congressional map that was proposed to be passed to changes in the congressional districts. It failed in the Senate. So some of the people who were appointed from the wrong districts. And so therefore, that is the reason that Callie was given by the governor's office. And so we have 2 appointments left to be made. Or if there are any more differences in the congressional districts, I have no idea, but let's hope not. That has to, I really do hope that happens before our next meeting because we'd like to have a full board.
Yeah, there's no deadline to complete the board? No?
No, that's totally up to the governor's office and boards and commissions. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens in that. So we've been in limbo here for a couple of weeks trying to figure things out. So hopefully we can. The session is over as of today, and then we will. There may or may not be a temporary or session at some point that's called, but they wouldn't appoint those for that. Do you know if the Senate has approved the appointments? I think it should have.
They were meeting, I think, Friday for confirmation, Thursday or Friday.
Last Friday?
Last week.
Yeah. Okay. So probably your appointments have been approved. I did not see it on the Senate board though. So we are in the process of just trying to get the new board established. We will have everything running correctly here as we always do. I mean, everything's on schedule. I don't have there's nothing terrible to tell you other than it's just going to take a few meetings for everyone to realize what must be done, what we're doing, what we can do. And, but the board is here to be the cosmetology board. We're not any other board, we're the cosmetology board. So therefore, rules and regulations, laws, state laws concerning cosmetology is what we're here to do. And to help our industry as much as a board can help the industry and things that need to be done. Look at any changes that need to be made so that in the future, everything will run smooth. People can continue to make a very good living at what they're doing. And so any of those, any suggestions you have, any thing you see that you'd like to discuss at board meetings, just write and let us know what you're concerned about, what you would like to speak about, and we'll see what needs to be added to board meetings, and we can discuss what we wish to discuss, because we've only been here for 25 minutes, and we've been here till 2 or 3 o'clock before, so hopefully it's generally Sherry's fault on some of these. We have 1,400 hearings, and that's just too much. But we do have one hearing that needs to be made, I think, before the term of the board. And, have the people arrived?
Is anyone here for the hearing?
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions for me? Since
I have a question. One of the estheticians that works at my day spa asked if I could ask if buccal massage is covered under the aesthetics license.
if what?
Buccal, B-U-C-C-A-L. I had to look it up as well. Some kind of a facial massage.
If it's on the face,
As
yeah.
long as it's on the face.
Okay.
Is it deep tissue massage?
I'm not sure exactly.
That would be the difference, I would think. If it's deep tissue massage, it's best if there's a question of regarding scope of practice
Mhm.
for it to be sent in writing,
Mhm.
so that it could be properly researched.
Okay.
Considered by the board.
And who should that be addressed to? Should it be from me or from her?
Don't we have, it doesn't matter who submits it, don't we have a form, Tasha,
No.
for declaratory judgments?
Yes.
Is it on the
Made one.
website? We could send a form or put it on the website.
Okay. Thank you.
So now we will move to the hearing, which, do we have anyone from Cherokee Beauty Bar present? Or Cherokee Alfred?
Proceed.
All right. Thank you. I will hand y'all, go ahead and hand y'all the exhibits, so that y'all can, that's 2 copies, so y'all can pass them around. And for the record, Kelsey Leggett here as the prosecutor for the board. My first witness, really my only witness, is to call Ms. Tasha. Ms. Tasha, would you please be sworn?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, would you please state your name and business address for the record?
Tasha Butler, 11622 Sunbelt Court, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 70809.
And what is your position with the Board of Cosmetology?
The assistant director
And how long have you been in that role?
since 2020, I believe.
And how long have you been with the board?
Since 2002.
Take a look at, or I will show you Exhibit 1. Do you need a copy, Tasha? Did you receive this inspection report on behalf of the board?
Yes, ma'am.
And is this inspection report related to a violation against Cherokee Alfred and Cherokee Beauty Bar?
Yes, ma'am.
And who is the investigator identified at the top? I'm sorry, the inspector identified at the top?
Miss Teresa Chevrolet?
And is Ms. Chevrolet still employed with the board?
No, ma'am.
All right. Was this report and violation received by you as part of your regular business practices and duties with the board?
Yes, ma'am.
Was it maintained in the board's business records as part of its regular business practices?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, after you received this violation or this inspection report and violation, did you conduct a search of the individual and the salon identified in the report in the board system?
I did.
And what did you determine?
That Cherokee Beauty Bar is a licensed cosmetology salon, and Ms. Cherokee Alfred is a esthetician.
And the report or the violation on violation number 52607 identifies an individual, Jasmine O'Connor. Did you determine whether Ms. O'Connor is licensed by the board?
She's not licensed by the board. She was licensed in Texas, but she did do a reciprocity application in June of 2023. But she still has not passed the exams to be licensed.
Okay, so this violation is from April 27th, 2023. So at that time, had Ms. O'Connor applied for reciprocity?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And so what was this violation for?
It was for working with the Texas license, performing eyelash services.
And so who was the violation or violations issued to?
To the owner as well as Jasmine O'Connor.
For what?
Working without an operator license present, a Louisiana license present.
Okay. And was this violation referred to the board's prosecutor?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll offer Exhibit 1 into evidence. It's received. Okay. All right, let's take a look, Tasha, at Exhibits 2 and 3, which I will hand to you. These are letters to Cherokee Alfred and Cherokee Beauty Bar dated May 23rd, 2023. Did you send these letters out on behalf of the board?
Yes, ma'am.
Were they sent to the registered addresses on file for Ms. Alfred and the salon?
Yes, ma'am.
And were they delivered? Well, let me ask you this, how were they sent?
They were sent certified in regular mail.
Okay. Do you know if they were delivered?
Yes, they both were received on May 27th, 2023.
Right. And did you receive any response to those letters on behalf of the board from Ms. Alfred or from the bar, the beauty bar?
No, ma'am.
All right. I'll show you what I've marked as Exhibits 4 and 5. Well, I'll offer and introduce Exhibits 2 and 3 first. Received. And then Tasha, I'll show you Exhibits 4 and 5. What are these documents?
The administrative complaint for Cherokee Beauty Bar as well as the owner, Cherokee Alfred.
And those were filed against the respondents?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you send those out on behalf of the board?
I did.
All right, I'll offer Exhibits 4 and 5 into evidence. Received. And last, Ms. Tasha, I'll show you Exhibits 6 and 7. These are packages that appear to have been sent to Cherokee Alfred and Cherokee Beauty Bar. Did you send these out on behalf of the bar, on behalf of the board?
Yes, ma'am.
On what date?
These were mailed out April 19th, 2024.
And did you send them to the registered addresses on file for the respondents?
Yes, ma'am.
And how did you send them?
Certified mail as well as regular mail.
And were they delivered to your knowledge?
I did not receive them back, so I'm going to say yes, ma'am.
If you look at the last pages,
Yeah.
there
Okay.
are 3 card receipts.
Yes. And they were received April 22nd, 2024.
And what was included in those packages that was sent out?
A consent agreement that we had offered her, the notice of the hearing, the notice to show cause why, an administrative complaint.
And were all notices sent to the registered addresses on record for these respondents?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you receive any response or communication from these respondents at any point?
No, ma'am.
All right, I'll offer Exhibits 6 and 7 into the record. Received.
And at this time, I have no further questions for Ms. Butler. Does the board have any questions?
No, ma'am.
All right. I have no further witnesses. I'll make a very brief statement. This is a violation from April 27th, 2023, for having an employee performing eyelash services that is not licensed. We issued, as you heard from Ms. Butler, we issued an informal notice letter giving the licensees the opportunity to respond, provide any evidence they had to refute the violation. They did not do so. We offered them consent agreements. They never responded to those, and we've now set them for hearing. And not only did they not respond to those notices that were issued, but they also did not appear today. And so these are violations, as we talked about before, of 591B1, which prohibits operating a salon without ensuring that all employees are properly licensed. 592A, which prohibits permitting an employee under your supervision to practice without a license. And 600A3, which prohibits unprofessional conduct that is likely to endanger the health, safety, or welfare of the public. And so for this reason, we brought these complaints against these two respondents, Cherokee Alfred, the owner of the salon, and the salon itself, Cherokee Beauty Bar. We would ask that, or I would ask that the board impose the maximum penalty fee available, which is $200 against each respondent, plus all costs of these proceedings. And then that the board impose a suspension of these two licenses until the time that all fees and costs are paid, at which point the suspension becomes a probation to last for a 1-year period. And I do have proposed findings of fact and conclusions as well.
I'm sorry, you asked a minute ago, I do have a question. The unlicensed worker, is her license currently up to date? Is she final? She still didn't do everything to pass the test? You said that.
Correct.
Has there been any communication from the defendants?
No, sir. But as we showed, we sent all of the notices to their addresses that are on record with the board, and we do have green cards showing that they were delivered.
Do you guys feel pretty comfortable accepting it as presented, or do y'all like me to discuss it? Yeah, if the board's not fine with it. I make a motion to accept.
Okay. The only thing I would ask is that you said I left the amount of the cost blank for y'all to consider.
So the ordinance we did last time, you will call them out.
We don't have the interpreter this time, so that cost obviously is not a part of this. We have the court reporter's cost and of course my cost and any cost from the board for the certified mailings and things.
So the board was using $750 an hour. And the last hearing we did, I think you all did add to the cost because we did have an interpreter and some additional costs that we don't apply here. So $750 is, I believe, less than what the actual cost would be.
Okay.
So do I have a motion to accept the fee at $750?
Were you saying that 750 is not enough? Is it a suggestion
If you're
that should it be higher?
estimating, I I don't know how much work was done to get it to hearing, but if the hearing lasted less than an hour and you don't have an interpreter, so that would be the difference from the prior hearing.
Is there a no-show penalty?
Very kind of
Sometimes
Kind of
what the
interest.
no-show penalty is you can't get your license back until you appear before the
What
board.
is the total? 650 plus the others?
So the fines that were recommended were $200, and there were 3 counts of violations, so that's 6 plus those other things. So the question was, what is the penalty for not showing? Sometimes you can't get your license back until you appear before the board. That has been a requirement that's been imposed in the past. Sometimes there are out-of-state operators that don't get licensed in the state and come to the state, and then they don't actually reapply. But if they do reapply, they would have to come and explain the situation to the board. So that's something that could be added.
Yeah, I think that needs to be
Yes,
added.
suspend their licensure.
Until they appear here.
So would the motion be to accept the findings of fact and conclusions of law and the presented order with the addition of $750 in cost and a requirement that the licensee appear before the board to have the license reinstated?
Yes. I make a motion to accept.
Any opposed? Who was the second? Who was the second?
Who was the second? Okay, thank you. No. No opposed.
No opposed. And just to clarify, we want the individual, Ms. Alfred, plus the person, if she applies for licensure, Ms. Aconis, to appear before the board as well? Okay. So then we would move into new business, or do I have to do the public hearing already?
Court reporter can be excused.
So I guess we'll move into new business and the executive director's report with Mr. Steve.
Yes, well, I kind of gave executive direction.
You kind of went already, huh?
Yeah, but,
No, you, $20. I'll take it if you don't want it. Well, we had some people grabbing for that.
Just as part of the report, I was explaining to you about writing and calling and those things that need to be done. And we're going to try to work with the governor's office and hopefully get our 2 appointments. So we'll have a full board. And if the governor makes a recommendation for the chairman, they generally do. So if they don't, then we'll meet as a board and you will elect your own chairman and vice chair at the next meeting.
Sorry, who normally makes the recommendation?
Ma'am?
Who normally makes the
Governor's
recommendation?
office, they always,
Like what you.
so we haven't heard anything, and we will have to see if there are any more changes, which there could be, and then additional appointments to the board. And so I will let you know immediately. I will give you, each of you, an email or a call as soon as we hear anything about the appointments. And so I think that will bring us down to Sherry and her report. And Sherry, you're gonna go through the amendments and things that did not pass in the legislature, all right?
So, as you all know, the legislative session will adjourn today. There were several bills that impacted cosmetology that were presented to the legislature. The first was House Bill 301 by Representative Abadi, which has been signed by the governor, is now Act 265, which is relative to non-accredited high schools or home schools, allowing those individuals that complete a program that is not accredited by Bessie and non-accredited home school to enter cosmetology school. The second was House Bill 446, and it has been signed by the president. It relates to public meetings and specifically mentions the cosmetology board, but that just provides a different notification process. I think we already follow that anyway, so attached is really for the staff. House Bill 749 by Representative Bayham provided for unregulated services within the Cosmetology Act. That bill was considered on April 22nd and by the House Commerce Committee and did not move forward from that committee. And some of our board members were there present for the hearing, and maybe some people in the audience as well. House Bill 782. House Bill 930 by Representative Ventrella was passed by the House Committee. That was a bill to lower the number of hours in the cosmetology curriculum from 1,500 hours to 1,000. It was reported favorably by the committee, and then on the floor was amended, went to the Senate Commerce Committee as a bill which would have created a haircutting license. However, the definition of haircutting did include chemical services as well, and that was did not pass favorably out of the Senate Commerce Committee. House Bill 959, which was a bill to sunset certain licenses, and originally cosmetology was in there by Representative Desertel. That bill was reported by a substitute bill, which became House Bill 972, and doesn't relate to cosmetology anymore, it relates to medical licenses. House Concurrent Resolution Number 2 by Representative Bayham was a bill to suspend the board's rules relative to alternative hair design. That was considered on April 22nd, 2024 by the House Commerce Committee, and it was not reported favorably. So those bills should not be moving forward, but there is still one day of session. Sometimes there are amendments to bills, but we'll be able to verify tomorrow, the next day, that we don't have any other bills that impact cosmetology. So those were the bills that were filed this year. The bill that was authorized by the board did not get filed, and that was to create a license for alternative hair, and also to adjust the hours for curriculums which were below 600 to 600 because of the change in federal funding from the Department of Education. There was a lot of talk about, today on the agenda you had several curriculums where the schools requested to reduce to 500 hours. There was a lot of talk, not just with cosmetology's bills, but some other disciplines that have curriculum that was affected by that change, that there are multiple suits seeking to enjoin the implementation of that rule, which is supposed to become effective July 1st. And there are some possibilities that the effective date of the rule might be delayed. So the impact of that on school programs is unknown at this time. So possibly for next year, I would suggest, since this is a new board, we used to kind of look at legislation to be introduced in December and get it ready in January. Sometimes that's really a short turnaround, though it doesn't sound like it is. But to find an author, to get together the materials you need to explain the reasons for any changes, you might want to consider doing that in the fall, sometime in the fall, to look at anything that you think needs to be changed. Outside of legislation, we still have a pending lawsuit challenging the rules for alternative hair design. It was argued in the First Circuit Court of Appeal at the last hearing date, and the projected decision date was Friday, but there was no decision released on Friday in that case. I did file a supplemental brief after the argument, which was accepted by the court because there was a representation by opposing counsel that you could transfer a license from Texas after only 6 hours of education, and that was not an accurate representation, so I provided the Texas law to the court so that they could see actually what the process was. So that's still the alternative hair issue that you may want to look at in terms of legislation or perhaps rules. far, there are no additional lawsuits at this point.
That's good.
Do you know if the reciprocity bill passed, the universal reciprocity bill passed?
Yes, and I'm glad you asked that question because I actually have it here with me. Yes, there is a reciprocity bill that passed, which will also affect the licenses issued by this board. It is House Bill 716 by Representative Owen, and it was signed by the president, so it's on its way to the governor. Doubt seriously that it will be vetoed, but it may or may not be signed, which would affect the effective date is August 1st, but it allows a person coming from another state with a similar license to obtain reciprocity. Currently, the cosmetology licenses are subject to reciprocity on a license per license basis, but it requires the applicant to hold a current and valid occupational license within the same scope of practice, which is something that will have to be evaluated by the staff in another state to apply for licensure in this state. If they have at least 1 year of practice in the other state and they have passed an examination in the other state to meet the education, training, and standards. And the license has to be in good standing, no discipline in the other state, and the applicant will have to pay the fees owed under this state law, and will have to be a resident of this state, and will have to submit proof of residency.
So what does that actually change? Anything?
It will change, I believe, possibly with some of the licenses other than cosmetology, you may have a reciprocity that would be a little bit different than the way it's being done now.
What about the NIC?
It says that if the other state required the applicant to pass an examination or meet education, training, or experience standards, then the license would be transferable. It's not related to the national necessarily. So it may need some interpretation, and we may have to come up with a list of questions that would be specific to our licenses and maybe submitted to the Attorney General.
Well, I asked.
Clarification.
I asked what happens when the new state law is contradictory to our state law. And I was told that we didn't have to adhere to it until our state law changed. Because there are rules that in our legislative law are contradictive to the new rules.
This law is going to supersede whatever laws are in place unless the law is determined to be specific and not subject to being superseded. And so that's an issue that we would have to probably ask the Attorney General for an interpretation. So for cosmetology, a license can be reciprocity. But for our other licenses, it's not the same requirement. So we probably need to make a list of questions with regard to each license type, and then submit that. There's been no, I mean, it just passed, so there's been no interpretation. But I think the purpose of it was to allow individuals who had been practicing in another state where they had been tested and there was an educational requirement to come into Louisiana and apply for a license.
That's the problem.
Yes, but it's not specific to cosmetology licenses. It's you know, other boards as well. So we'll have to do some research on that. That's all I have. It's called the Welcome Home Act, if you see anything. In the news or whatever, it would be the Welcome Home Act. It doesn't really require you to have been a resident before, it just requires residence after.
Does anybody have anything else?
I think our new chairman did a good job today.
Thank you. Well, I guess we will adjourn this meeting at 9:55.
All in favor?